Okay, let's talk some about the City of Santa Clarita Capital Improvement Program. You remember last month I talked a little bit about the budget and said, look how big it is. I mean, it was 200 and some pages. Here it is. And some of the stuff is not very well called out or set at a very high level, but the Capital Improvement Program is a pretty big section. So anything that comes up on this screen that you say, you know, what's exactly, or what is the city saying they're going to do? I can turn the page to it and show it to you or read it to you. And in this particular case, I think that we're looking at this because it's your money. These are all things that you as an individual are going to pay for. And we need to know where our money is being spent and whether or not the expenditures are appropriate. And one of the reasons is because you can put things in the budget, and if you put them in the budget and they're under $50,000, well, the city manager can go ahead and spend that money without going to the council. So certain things get in here, and you don't know anything about them, and all of a sudden they pop up, and someone says, well, where'd that come from? And they go, well, it was in the budget. It was all there the whole time. I mean, didn't you read it? Did you know about it? So we're going to talk a little bit about those, and I'll show you how that works. I believe that there really should be a detailed city staff presentation on at least the Capital Improvement Program, because normally we just get overviews and roll-ups, and we don't really get a good feel for what's there. So let's find out why. Why is the capital improvement hard to understand? Well, it's big. There's a lot of paper. You know, most people fall asleep reading this stuff. I have trouble staying awake reading this stuff. Right? The second part about it is in city speak. And I always get nervous when I understand what they're talking about, because now I realize that I understand city speak. I've learned that. And lots of these items that are in here have not been discussed at council meetings. Or if they've been discussed at council meetings, it's been in passing. You know. So you may not be familiar with it. And they mix funding sources. So they talk about, this is the capital improvement program, but some of the money for this comes from the redevelopment agency. Some of it comes from landscape maintenance districts. Some of it comes from other assessment districts. Some of it comes from the general fund. It comes from all different, so it's not segmented so that you know exactly where it's coming from unless you dig into it a little bit more. And sometimes it takes projects and it separates them out in parts. And there's 2 items for a particular project, and sometimes it consolidates them. And so it's interesting. And then, of course, it has its unique organization. It's not organized by a city department. It's not organized by anything except the Capital Improvement Plan organization, which is this. It's organized in beautification and landscaping, circulation, facilities and buildings, maintenance, parks, resource management and conservation, streets and bridges, trails and transit. So as we go through this, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask, okay? And we'll see what we got. Let me give you an example. This is the first section, the beautification and landscaping section of the Capital Improvement Program. You can see it's about $2.4 million. Not that huge. But when you look at it, the first thing that you might think, and I dissected this a little bit more to give you the flavor of what I just talked about. The first part of it is art for Canyon Country, $30,000. Where's it going to be? Who knows? I haven't told you yet. The one thing that I know is that Newhall Art gets $45,000 a shot, but Canyon Country only gets $30,000. I don't know, it must be in a smaller location. The next thing that kind of tripped my trigger was $45,000 to replace the fountain in the Newhall Metrolink station with a piece of art. You guys heard about this? You didn't know? Oh, I'm shocked. The next part is a landscape maintenance project. And that's, let me see. This is not in a good place for me to read today. Huh? Okay. But that is funded from a landscape maintenance district. The other things that we talked about were funded from the general fund. Remember this? There's another $45,000 for Newhall Art. This is the statue in the middle of the roundabout in Newhall that the public said they didn't want. Okay, so they said landscape it, and they did, right? Right. But that money is still in the capital improvement program, which tells me someday, all of a sudden, someone may pop up and say, "Guess what? We got public art." This is a project that is divided into two pieces, and it is a refurbishment of medians, right? Okay, and Friendly Valley Parkway to where? Okay, so they're refurbishing them, but it's shown in two pieces. Sometimes this happens when part of it is established in 1 year and then it rolls over to another year. So this is an example of how you have different things in different funding sources and sometimes they're divided up. But there you go. That one I think deserves a gold star. And that one is... All right. So Soledad Canyon Road utility undergrounding from Bouquet to Town Center Drive.
Is that just for the design? Can you say design?
Yes.
They haven't put a shovel in.
No.
$300,000.
Design. Oh, that's a cheap design. It's only $300,000. But in this particular case, I can understand why there's a design effort. Because this is, you underground utilities. You got to figure out how you're going to get the electricity to places that, you used to just string the wire above the ground. So I think that's a very, remember when they underground the utilities in Soledad between, between Camp Plenty and how far did they go? Sierra Highway? Remember how much better that looked? So this is going to, I consider that a gold star item. And look at this, turf removal and standard median implementation. That's coming out of the LMDs. It's probably the reason why the LMD 2008-1 is going over budget by $1.5 million this year. That's a different story. We'll talk about that some other day. But you know what? It was just the beginning of the year, when we were talking to the city and saying, "City, we're in a drought. You promised in 2008 that you were going to remove turf. When are you going to remove it?" And they gave us a prioritization of how they wanted to work. Removal of turf was last. But then again, Brown said you can't water it anymore. So now all of a sudden it bubbles up to the top of the priority list. Okay, this is the circulation element. And the one thing in the circulation element that I noticed was this. $3.2 million for Phase 4 of the project to help synchronize all the lights across Santa Clarita. How's Phase 1 through 3 working for you? Let me tell you what Phase 1 through 3 was. They put cameras at several intersections around Santa Clarita, and they made it available so that you could change the lights and the signals from the command post in City Hall. And they put the command post on the third floor. and they don't man it 24 hours a day. Actually, I don't know how often they man it. But I know if it was my command post, I would put it on the first floor behind glass so you could see that it's working. Because it must be working. I went down the Cross Valley Connector the other day, and I hit every single light red. Right? I tried running exactly at the speed limit. I hit every single light red. They must have been watching and saw it was me. There you go. Think so? Okay. All right. What do we got there? Excuse me?
Facilities and buildings.
Okay. There's a gold star. That's the Canyon Country Community Center design. Design only. No shovels in the ground for $1.6 million. That's in the budget for this year. However, like we talked about before, the actual construction amount is not in there. All right, what do we got here? Maintenance. Wow. Look at that. Almost $13 million for maintenance. I give that a gold star, too. All three of those items are for either slurry coat, street maintenance, maintenance of roadways to improve stormwater flow, and they've done a good job. I say, good job, Robert Newman. You're doing as well as you can for the amount of money that you have, and they're going to have around $11 million. Right there on my corner, for the longest of time, we had a swimming pool at the intersection. Water just stood there. And that's the only thing good, I think, came out of the Extreme Neighborhood Makeover. They actually went to that intersection to have their party and found that they needed a submarine to get there. Right? It wasn't that bad. But they noticed that all that water was standing there, and, of course, it tears, the asphalt goes away. And after they repaired the asphalt 2 or 3 times, they actually did come out and repair it. And the water flow is much better. So it does work. And if you have a street where the asphalt is really getting torn up, I suggest you pick up the telephone and call Robert Newman and say, hey, come out and look at my street. Now, I did that for a neighbor. When they went and slurry coated my neighborhood was in 2000. That, by the way, people have heard this story a lot, too. This is the reason why I got involved in this in the first place. In 2000, they tore up my street and left it torn up for 6 months. And I was yelling at them for the whole time. Okay? But when they went through the neighborhood, they forgot one cul-de-sac. So a few years ago, this is probably 5 years ago, some of my neighbors came and they talked to me and they said, look at our street. Look at how bad it is. And it was bad. It was getting really broken up. So I called Robert and said, hey, just come out and look at it. Tell me if you think it's the right thing to do now. And he came out, and on the next batch of slurry coating, they got slurry coated. So if you got a street that's really torn up, call Robert. He's a good guy. Okay. Parks. All righty. We're going to spend $300,000 to help put artificial turf on a CO, College of the Canyon soccer field. Why? It especially is curious to me as to why, because it talks about this as being a joint use agreement. And any time that the Parks Department starts talking about a joint use agreement, you're going to see it raise the hair on the back of my neck, and I'm going to talk about North Oaks Park, where they had a joint use agreement with the Hart School District, and that softball diamond was used by was a joint use agreement where the county put in the lights, and the school district put in the diamond, and we used to use it at night for city functions or county functions and city functions, and they gave up that joint use agreement. So why all of a sudden are we joint use agreementing again with a school district? Interesting question. What do we got here?
Resource management and conservation.
Resource management and conservation. Wow. Well, look, what's the last item there? Yes, it's the compressed natural gas fill station at Vista Canyon Ranch, and it's not that well. It's $1.2 million, nothing to sneeze at. You know, I could probably paint my house for it or something. But the reason why I question it is because I read in the capital improvement program why they're doing it. They're doing it to alleviate the lines, the wait time for the city to fill up their vehicles with compressed natural gas. You know where the current one is here on this side of town? Well, it's in the shopping center where Bank of America is. It's right in the middle. Huh? Yeah, it's right. The Food for Less is there too. I normally like the bank better because they have money, but the Food for Less is there also. Well, the food isn't bad either, you know. So, but I see that thing all the time. I don't see people back up to it, right? I don't see a group of. But anyway, that's one of the things that they're doing. And
Streets and bridges.
streets and bridges. Now, there's a gold star for the bridge over the 14 on Golden Valley Road. And this year, they're putting in about $712,000. That's this year's commitment. If you add it all up, the total commitment, total cost was $10.7 million. So this is really good. It's something that we've needed a lot of, right? You're right. I had this activity going before the last election, and I would go out and stand on street corners. You know, I didn't have a "We'll work for food" sign. No, I had an election sign. One of the places I used to go every now and then was to that intersection. And when I went to that intersection, I noticed it is a very well-used route to school. And all the kids had to go negotiate the traffic signals there. So I gave that a gold star because I think that's really a needed place where a paseo will actually get used. Most of the paseos I see in Santa Clarita are ornamental. They don't get used. But that one, I think, will get used quite a bit.
Trails and transit.
Rails and transit. Yeah. Well, that's the Vista Canyon Ranch Metrolink station design. And I thought it was interesting.
Regional Transit Center.
Yeah, it's about, what, $1.3 million? So there you go. That's only design. And that goes along with the concepts of Vista Canyon Ranch that's currently under construction. So, notice anything missing? Did you see anything about recycling water? No. Did you see anything about the capture of stormwater? No. So, what's the deal? Doesn't anybody care? Now, if the Metrolink station moves from Via Princesa to Vista Canyon Ranch, what's going to happen to Via Princesa? Well, we know, we had the guys presenting here, that the Vista Canyon Ranch project donated $1 million to plan a park on the other side of the railroad tracks of that site. Why isn't it in the capital improvement program? I don't know. Now, we have certain people that want the new Metrolink station, Vista Canyon Ranch, to be an additional Metrolink station, and this one remain. So it's a possibility that this one isn't going to go away. But if it did go away, it's our one opportunity for a large park on the east side of the valley. But we'll see what happens. Yes?
Yeah, Al, didn't Metrolink have to approve that, moving it over there, and have they done so already?
As far as I know, they have not yet. Okay. So.
Yeah, I have a question too. If it's Metrolink, why should we have to pay for the design? Shouldn't Metrolink pay for the conceptual design?
That's a good question. That's a good question. Should Caltrans pay for it, right? Or Metro pay for Metro?
Yeah, I mean,
Well, that's a good question. Why are we? I don't know. You know what? That's a very good question, and I'll ask that question. I'll get you an answer. Why are we paying for that design? Yeah, that's a very good question. I'm sorry I didn't think of it myself. You see anything in the capital improvement program that resembled anything about Lemley? No. Which means it's new. It's a new expenditure. And if we put in another $13 million project, which one of the projects that are already being planned are going to be postponed? I don't know. Did you see anything in the capital improvement program about additional roads? Not that traffic is a problem here in Santa Clarita, right? So when you look at these things and you actually get down and you start looking at what they're writing about and printing about, you realize that the staff is reacting to what they're being pressured to do, either by the council or by developers or by someone else. And if you want stuff to happen, we need to be the ones to go drive it and say, we want this stuff to happen. And so I plan to go, and I'm going to start talking about why in this capital improvement program don't we have anything about recycling? Because, like I said, all this is tied together. Right now, we're in a drought. City of Santa Clarita is planting medians, paying landscape maintenance district money. They're putting in purple pipe. Hooray, hooray. It's not connected to anything. So what good is it? Where's the rest of the infrastructure to support what they're doing? Would have to be in the capital improvement program somewhere. It's not there. So all these things kind of intertwine. But the main thing is that why we're looking at this? Because it's your money. And if it's your money, you should be able to start talking to people about what it is you think is important for Santa Clarita to do. And you need to realize and really be assured that your money is not being wasted. And so we're going to keep track of this stuff, and we'll go through more sections of budget as soon as I can stay awake long enough to read part of it. So is there any other questions? Yes, sir.
Carol's got one back here.
You don't want that here, do that.
Go, Carol.
Alan?
Yes.
You had a thing under parks. Actually, it wasn't parks, it was under maintenance. And there was an item there for $202,000 for the Central Park Aquatic Center scoreboard. Shouldn't that be under
Yes.
parks?
Yes.
And not maintenance?
Yes.
It was for the water park.
Yes.
It was under parks, though. It was under just maintenance.
Yes, it is under parks, and it is for the aquatic center, and it is for a new scoreboard. And yes, that is one of the items that the I don't know what the condition of their old scoreboard is, but for some reason they have put in.
Under maintenance, not under parks. It was a separate.
Well,
thing.
again,
Is that where they're commingling the funds?
well, I think that it's just the way they put it in there. This is segregated by certain things, but there's no hard and fast rule. I can understand why you would think it would be in parks instead of being in maintenance, but probably in maintenance because the old one is wearing out and they want to put a new one in. So they decided to categorize it there. I don't think it makes much difference. The whole idea is they're going to spend the money. Do we think that's the right thing for them to spend the money on? Yes, sir.
Yes, I think it's probably timely or past timely for the Central Park to be irrigated with recycled water because it's so close by. It's being dumped in the river right there at Bouquet Bridge. The Central Park already has the purple pipes. The Castaic Lake Water Agency owns that property, leases the city for $1, I believe. And they forced the city to use our drinking potable water to irrigate the landscaping in that park. Before the city made it a park, the Castaic Lake Water Agency would lease it to farmers and allow them to use the wells on the property and allow them to, well, I guess the other thing they could use was untreated state water, gravity feed down from the CLWA to the park. So we don't need to be using up our drinking water on that parks landscaping. That we've been forced into that by CLWA, and now is the time. I think we ought to put some pressure on
Right.
and say use recycled water on our
Right.
Central Park.
Save that thought for the drought, because we're going to talk about just that. Okay? We're going to talk about just those kinds of things. And you're absolutely right. You know, it's the idea. What's our community leaders doing relative to the drought? Yes, sir. Any others? No? Okay.